Hi everyone, Carl Good here. We're going to duplicate this layout. It's not a great design, but it does illustrate a lot of different points that you can do with Adobe Illustrator CS6. And let's get started. What I'm going to do first is click on the artboard icon over here and let's make a new artboard. And I'm going to put that right next to this artboard so that you can always see what I'm working on here. And I'm going to click on this new artboard thing and put that right there. And we'll slide on over here, and you'll see that over on this side I have all my assets that I'm going to need, and I'm going to slide those a little bit closer so I can just feed them off the board. This is the artboard, so all that's going to print will be this white area. The gray area around it is sort of like your desktop. So I'm going to go ahead, and the first thing I'm going to do is create the text. I'm going to work with the text, this body text here, these 4 columns, and I'm going to create some paragraph styles and some character styles so that, let's say this is going to be a template that I want to use for designing all the time, like if I was making a magazine or this was just something, my favorite kinds of fonts, I want to just store them as a character. Style that I can just click on without having to go change, all the different qualities of that font. So I'm going to just sort of look at this, and I'm not going to use a lot of rulers and guides and all that stuff. I'm just going to eyeball it for now just to illustrate that. There are actually 2 ways that you can break a text block into columns, and I'm going to show you, I guess, the easier way, but I actually tend to use the other way, the more complicated way. And when I say complicated, it's not that complicated, as you'll see, but you should know how to do it that way too in case you ever need it. I'm just going to select this text. I've sort of positioned it on the page where I want it. It's roughly the width I want, and I can fine-tune that. I can come up to the word type up here and select area type options, which gives me a window that has the size right at the top so I can hit a very precise measurement. I can also select the columns, and I want 4 columns, and once I've done that, I can preview what that's going to look like too, and once I've done that I can change the gutter width, the space between the columns. 18 point is a little much, so I'm going to hit 12 there and say OK. And that's looking pretty good. And you can see that my type doesn't fill the 4 columns, but that's okay because when I bring my sports car up into this layout, it'll actually probably, hopefully, bump more text over. And if not, I can always fill in with a little extra text. That's what editing is all about. So I'm going to click on the box tool, and I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to just create a box that's about the size of that text. And I'm a little bit deeper because I want to make sure that it bleeds behind the car. And so you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead, now I've just made a box, and that box is considered a path. There's a path around that box. So you have to go up to Object now to split that into a grid, and come up here and say Path, Split into Grid. And I can see I'm not going to do any rows, I just want to do the 4 columns, and I'm going to go ahead and put a gutter of about 12 points or a pica in there, and I'm going to say OK. And now you can see I have my 4 columns. I'm going to link all of these together so that they become text friendly. And to do that, I'm just going to come up here to the word type, and I'm going to say threaded text, and I'm going to say create. And now you can see there are these bold blue lines connecting all of those boxes together, and that means that it's waiting for text, which I happen to have right over here. So I'm going to just click on this text right here, and I'm going to go Edit, Copy, or Command or Control C on the PC. And now you see when you click off a type grid like I just did, it disappears. And sure, I can just sort of draw a box and find it like this, but it keeps disappearing. So you're going to see me do a lot during this tutorial of going Command or Control on the PC Y. I'm on a Mac. Command Y. And what that does is it basically says preview mode. No, not preview, it's outline mode. So if I come up here to view on the menu, you'll see it's the top item there, preview, Command Y. And to get back, it's just Command Y, Command Y, Command Y, which is fine. So I've just copied this type, and I'm going to go ahead and put my cursor on the top left here and just click in. And I'm going to zoom into what I'm doing here so you can see. There's a cursor blinking on the top left there. And I'm going to say Edit or Paste or Command Control or V, which pastes it in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just start formatting this text. I'm going to go Command A, Control A to select all. I can go to Select All right up at the top. And I'm going to, now when you select text, the bar at top up here on Illustrator turns into text stuff. You can also do Command T. I'm going to say Command, but for UPC users it's Control from now on. I'm going to do Command C, T, and that's for, it brings you up the text objects, the text menus. And there's a little button next to that thing that you can say hide options, and you can say show options, and that's about all there is. It's nothing quite like InDesign, Adobe InDesign, which has a lot of more, much bigger type capability. But this is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm going to go ahead and format this text. I'm going to make it 8 point. See how 8 point looks. Just clicking in the top left one here, that field is 8 point, and it automatically defaults to 1.6 points leading, which is the space between additional space between the lines. So if it's 8 point type, it's going to give you with 1 point plus 1.6 between, so it would be 9.6 leading. I like more leading in, especially when I'm building some. It's a little tight for me. It's great probably for a book, but I'm going to go ahead and make that 12, and let's see how that looks. I think that's looking a lot better. So now it's feeling a little cleaner, a little more open, a little more breathing space. And actually you can see there's a lorem ipsum right there. So that's how you spell that. So I'm going to go ahead and pick some type in here. Let's pretend there had been paragraphs here. So I'm going to hit return on a few of these things, just random returns, so that we have paragraphs. And we'll pretend we had some paragraphs. Again, this is all just for learning. I'm going to just hit return on that, and maybe on that. We'll just hit a bunch of those. I want to add an indent for all the paragraphs, and I want a few extra lines or a few extra points of space between each the end of one paragraph and the beginning of another one. So I'm going to hit Command A again, and I'm going to come up here to the word paragraph, which is sitting right there, and I'm going to click on that. And what you'll see here in this window is some icons that indicate what this is doing. And if you just sort of hover over it with your mouse, it'll tell you what it is. So this is a left indent, the top one, that'll indent the entire thing over, like if you wanted to do an entire tab of the whole text block. But the next one down is just the first line. So we're going to go ahead and put, I guess 12 sounds about good. And that's 12 points in, or a pica in, for an indent. And the next one down is basically space above each line. You can see it's pointing to that line at the top. There's a box at the top of this little icon. So I want to, above each one of those, there you can see that they all just indented. I'm going to go ahead and make that, let's say I want to add 3 points above, and I think just 3 points above is fine. And we should be, you know what, I'm going to make that 0. I'm going to do 3 points below. 3 points below each line, and I'm going to hit enter. And so you can see that I've added a little extra space between the end of this paragraph and the beginning of this one. Now I don't have caps in all of these because I was pretty random about selecting them, but I can just quickly throw in a couple of caps there just to get the point. And now we have these really nice paragraphs. So let's pretend that I'm gonna hit this one right here. I'm gonna hit right here another paragraph, and the reason for that is I want to make this a quote. So I'm going to make this a special thing. I'm going to say, let's make this, I'm coming up to the type field here. I'm going to make, this is all Arial. Most people have Arial, so you should be able to duplicate this tutorial if you want. I'm going to come up and say, I want that to be Arial black, which is really bold. You can make it whatever you want. So now we have it black, but a quote doesn't hold together very well with these big gaps. So I'm going to hit Command T. Oh, that made it disappear. It's already open. I'm going to hit Command T, and I'm going to tighten up the leading on those so it's not so far apart. I'm going to go back to just 8 on 10 instead of 12, which will tighten that up. And it's also a little bit, there's a lot of gaps. It's very gappy. The letters, there's a lot of space between these letters. So we'll just zoom in here. This is really nicely in here, so you can see what I'm doing. Feels a little spidery to me, which means it's not holding together all that well. So I'm going to there's too much space between the letters. I'm going to come over here to this one here, this icon, the second one on the right here, and I'm going to say, let's tighten those up. I'm going to hit minus, let's just try 10, minus 10, and see that tightened it up a little bit, but you get the point. You can tighten things up there. I'll add a quote there. We'll pretend this is a real quote, and I think this looks great. Maybe last thing what we'll do is maybe we'll make it a color, and you know what color I'm going to make it? I'm going to go Command Out, Zoom. I just did Command 0 to fit the entire layout to screen, and I'm going to go back to Command Y, which will take it off of that outline preview mode. So there's my type, and I want it to be the exact same color as this red sports car. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to zoom in on my mic with my magnifying glass, and you can see that I have the font over here. Here's my quote, and on the lower left here is my car. So I'm going to select this right like that up there on that type. Take the eyedropper tool, and I'm going to eyedrop that dark red right about in there. Bam! And that should be a nice red quote. So that'll look nice, I think. I'm going to go Command 0 again to zoom out and see full screen. Now I'm going to just do a couple of quick little things with the text again. I'm going to come in here and let's say I want the word Richard McClintock, and there's a name. I'm going to say I want that to be Arial bold, and or let's make that, I want that to be bold and italic. I'm going to go now and I have a quote here, and I'm going to say, I'm going to pretend I have another quote over here, and this is all for the purpose of illustration. I want to go ahead and make a paragraph style out of this quote box. As a matter of fact, I want to make a paragraph style out of this one of these entire text blocks right here. So I'm going to go ahead and come up to the word view, and then I'm going to go to the word type. Oh, I'm sorry, window, and come down to type. And under type at the bottom, you'll see that it has character styles and it has paragraph styles. And I'm going to open up both of those windows. So there's one, and then I'm going to come back up here to window, type, and do paragraph styles also. Oh, they're both here and tabbed you can see they're both tabbed into the same window. So we'll start with the character style. I'm going to go ahead and pick Richard McClintock here. That is a bolder italic font embedded in this regular paragraph. And I'm going to just, this is normal character style, and we're not going to mess with that. We'll just leave that for now because I just want to show you how to add a character style. I'm going to click the little page marker here and say add additional here, and it's just saying character style too. And so if I just had this selected when I did that, and now if I double click on this, it'll give me the option to rename it, so I can say it bold, italic, I can't spell, italic name convention. So maybe I want to make all names bold and italic. And by the way, when you click on that, again, you can see that it's reading what that font is. It's Arial, it's bold italic, it's 8-point on 12-point lettering, and you say, okay. So that's as easy as it was to make that character style. Just select the text. While that's selected, hit a piece of paper down there, a new layer, a new style, and you've got that. And so now let's come back to this other name down here. How about the word Renaissance down here? And I can just now click, double click on that style, and it just made that style. And here we'll pretend this ipsum passage is also a name, and we'll just double click on that. I didn't do it hard enough. Let me just do that again. Click, click, and there it is. But let's say, oh wow, we really wanted to make that red. So what we can do is open this back up, and I can come here. You can see there are all these different things you can click on. You can click on General, Advanced Character Formats, all kinds of stuff. You do character color. I'm going to go ahead and change the character color from red, say, to more of an orange color. So if I just select that there, you can see that already changed those colors in all of the text. So that's how easy that is. Now you can imagine if you have a lot of artboards and you decided that you're doing an ad campaign or something, you got several different layouts on all these artboards, and you decide that throughout them you wanted to go ahead and make all these things, all of these names in all your different versions of this ad orange. You just have to change that style, and they'll automatically all change. So it's a very handy thing. You can do the same in InDesign too. So now I'm going to select this paragraph here. I'm going to click over on paragraph styles, and that's the quote here. As you can see, that's red and bold. I'm going to just say new on that. Just name that. I'm going to call it bold quote. How's that? And so now I can come and select this other quote right over here, and I can just double click on that. So you can see it just did that quote exactly like the other one. And just like the character styles, if I were to change any color or any kind of anything about the font at all, it would do the entire thing. Lastly, I'm going to select this paragraph here, and I can add another one and just say indent paragraph. And now I have that indent paragraph style, or just by having that selected and creating a new one. So for example, I could just come over to here select this whole paragraph and you will see it turn into exactly this font here with the same spacing and everything just by clicking on indent style. I hit it too many times. So you can see it's indented and it is now the same font that is over there. So that's very handy, and you're going to want to use that a lot if you want to have a style book of your own for your own business or something, and these are just fonts you always will use for your style and a type style without having to go in and change it every time or massage that type. What we're going to do now is, you can see I have the word sports car over here. I'm going to hold the space bar down and I get the hand, so I can just come over here, and we want to style up a headline pretty much like this. I'm going to center this type here. Right now it's flush left, so I'm just going to click on this icon up here that centers. So now the type is centered. I can see that the word sports car is on its own line, so I'm going to backspace to get rid of that extra space there, and then hit return, and then do the same again to get rid of that extra space. I could just see what size I have over here. It's 68 point Arial black. I can just come over here and let's say I want 68 point Arial black. Arial black, and I'm going to just double click into this space and type 68 points. And now it went away. Now the reason it went away is because my text block is too small. So Instinct might have you come over here to this free transform tool and click on that and then pull it down, but all that does is stretch your type. Don't ever stretch or squish your type. That is a sin in the design world. What I need to do is actually open that window more, the box, and Illustrator doesn't make it very easy to do that, and you need to use the white arrow to do that, the direct selection, not the black one. So I'm going to hit Command Y so I can find the box. There it is. So I'm back in outline mode. Click on my white arrow, click on this on the bottom of the line here, and I'm going to hold the Shift key down so it stays as a up and down, on that perfect vertical path. But if I let go, it's very loosey-goosey. You can really screw up your type. So I'm going to keep that locked in here. But that's still not wide enough, so I have to go this way and I have to go this way. I could have just created a new text block. I'm just going to make this a really big text space up here, and we can just fill it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to go back to Command Y. So you can see that I've got all of this text. I'm going to just triple click that text, and first time actually the space between the top line of type and the word sports car is way too much. Basically, if I look at my type box down here, you can see that I have 68 point type. That's that, but it's on 81 leading, and that's really too much for that typeface up there. So I'm going to triple click on this thing here, the leading number, and I'm going to type maybe 64 and see if that pops it up closer. It did. That black box isn't really there. That just means the type is selected, and whatever's selected in Illustrator is what you're going to have that action occur to. It'll happen to the selected thing, and in this case it's this text. So I'm going to come back in. I want that to be a little bit tighter, so I'm going to try 60 point and click off it, and let's see how that looks. That's looking pretty good, but let me actually have to make this bigger. So it's 12 point now. Let's try and make it about 21 and see how that looks. That's pretty close to what I have over there. It's probably a little bit smaller, so maybe I'll make it 20. And this Triumph is a bold italic, so we'll just make that Arial bold italic, and it's looking kind of close. You can see there's one big problem is that sports car is upper and lowercase font. Is all lowercase font, and sports car over on the right is all uppercase capitals. So I'm going to triple click the word sports car, come up to the word type, and say change case. Make that uppercase, and now we're talking. Now that's looking pretty good. But it's still black, and we'll color that in the same way we did the text down here with the eyedropper tool when we bring in that sports car. So I'm going to just with the white arrow close this a little bit, close that window shade that the type lives in. Maybe we have to make this a little bit bigger. I think it'll work just the same size as the type up at the top, which I've completely forgotten what size that is, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to get my eyedropper tool and just click on that font above it, the word the, and now it's the same size as above. And not the best looking design, but I'm just showing you how to use these tools. I can center that a little bit better and bring this down. So that's looking pretty close. Now what I'm going to do is, I think what I need to do is bring in the car, because, and then we're going to make this drop cap and a couple more things, and we're going to be done. I'm going to bring this over here. Now, what I did with this car, this is for the drop cap, that view there. What I did with this car is I clipped out the background, so all you have is the car. I'm like, this is like a cooking show where I'm preparing the dish, but I'm not waiting for it to be cooked, because so I've already prepared one in advance. But I'm going to just take the magnifying glass here on the left and draw a box around these two cars, well, mostly the one above, so it'll fill the screen. I'm going to close the character window, and now you can see that I've got this car pretty zoomed in. I'm going to go ahead and say object. That's this is the object that's on my desktop here, is this car, but I want to lock that, because if I'm tracing around it and I accidentally bump it and move it, I'm going to have to keep repositioning it. But if I lock this in place and I can't move it, that'll just be a little bit less annoying and safer. So I'm going to go object, and I can just say lock selection or hit Command 2. It's very easy to unlock. So now you see I can't move that no matter what. So now I'm going to get my pen tool, which is right over here in the corner, on the top, third tool on the left here, and choose that. There's no pen color, which I do want to have a pen color. So I'm going to come to Windows, and I'm going to say Swatches, and over here you can see I've got some colors I can choose from. I like the color to not be black, or certainly not the color of the object I'm tracing, so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to make that sort of a bright yellow, I guess. There's a nice, or yellow-orange. So you can see that over here. And I'm not going to have a fill, because when you're drawing and tracing with a fill, it just sort of makes it very complicated to see what you're doing, because it keeps filling as you're drawing. So as you draw around a curve, it's filling that curve in. It's very, very distracting, and you can't see through it unless you change the opacity of you're drawing it or something. It's not worth it. So I'm going to be very rough with this and say, well, actually, I'll just show you. There's no easy way to do this. So you can see that I'm being very careful. If I were really being careful, if this was a serious ad for somebody for something, I may not actually do this in Illustrator. I'd probably bring it into Photoshop and make a zoom way in on what I was doing and put a clipping path around that, so it would completely obliterate the background. But I'm going to now you can see that I'm being very careful and coming all the way down here. I'm clicking and dragging that point out. There are plenty of tutorials on how to use the pen tool. You should practice and practice that, because it is what a lot of people do is they go click, 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 even close together, and it looks terrible. So I'm going to go ahead and just pretend this is here, and I want to show you how to make a clipping path, which is to basically clip out the background coming around the corner, and now I'm closing that. Now, in order to clip out the background, you can draw any shape, and it'll completely clip out the background. So I basically have this now. If I'm going to slide it out of the way, you can see I have that shape sitting over on top of the photo. I have to unlock my photo, or it won't clip. It's locked. You can't do anything to it. So I'm going to come up to Object, and I'm going to say Unlock All, and now my photo's unlocked. And I'm going to do some magic here. If I select the line that I drew around the car and the photo, those two objects, I can right-click and say Make Clipping Mask, and that's how easy it is. Now it's important that a lot of times it'll say you can't do it, and two things can be wrong with that. You're trying to the car's on one layer and the line you drew is on another layer. Illustrator doesn't like that. They have to be on the same layer. And you can also have the car in front of your line somehow, and that can mess up too. So if the line were behind the car, somehow you'd drawn it behind and the car was in front, you couldn't. The photo's in front. It can't clip it. So what I'm going to do now is zoom all the way out, and I'm just going to bring this car that I already did. I'm going to bring that. I'm going to put that right about there, and you can see that the type's in front of it here. And I obviously want to enlarge it, and I want to, make it, mascot, wrap that text. But first I have to bring it to the front. Now, again, I could be doing, maybe I should be using layers on this, and it's easy to use layers, but I'm not gonna take the time to do that. I'm going to just click on this, and I'm going to right-click Arrangement, and I'm going to say Bring to Front, and that just brought everything to the front. Right-clicking on an object will give you all kinds of options. It can be really nice. But by the way, you can't wrap text when they're on different layers. either, so that wouldn't have worked anyway. So I'm going to sort of put this car over in this corner here. Now, the best tool to use when you're enlarging a object that has a clipping mask around it is this direct selection, the free transform tool. So I'm just going to click on that and hold the shift key down. If I don't hold the shift key down, I can really wreck this car. The shift key makes things conform to their proportions. So I'm going to just bring that along and enlarge this car to about there. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can see if I'm about the same size as the layout. Ooh, I'm way off. I still have lots more to go. So I'm going to bring that almost to the edge of that paper and just eyeballing this again. And it's a little bit, it's right about where it needs to be. So here's the text, and it looks like there's not enough text, and there may not be. I may have to add a little bit, but you can see those columns are over there. So if I hit Command Y, you'll see those two columns are still there. But what I need to do is now tell the car to wrap the text that's behind it. And that's an easy enough thing to do just by coming up to here, Object, and going to Text Wrap and say Make. And it instantly wrapped all that text up there. And the thing is that it's a little piece of it is sticking up down here. I'm going to zoom in now so we can see a little bit better what's going on and move this up. And you can see that the text is looking good, but it's not enough, and it is popping out down here. So the only way to do that is, again, you can't just squish text blocks up. If I just select this text block here and grab the selection tool here and drag it up, it just squishes the text. So that doesn't work. Remember that. You have to use the white arrow, hit Command Y so you can see what you're doing, and I'm going to grab that bottom line and pull that window shade up. And I don't really need to do this with these, but you know what, actually I don't want that word making it right there. I want that to be cleaner. This is going a little too deep into the car. Actually, I'm going to come back to Command Y, and I'm going to increase the wrap on this sports car. It's a little tight to the car, so I'm going to select this. You can see the space around it when you select it. It has a wrap on it, but I want to make that a fatter one. So I'm going to come up to Object again, Text Wrap Options, and you can see that it says 6 point. I'm going to go ahead and make that 12. I'm going to double it. And now you can see that that is much farther away, and it's actually a little bit more like the way this one is over here. So that looks good. I'm going to Command Y again and clean this up. I'm going to have to throw in a little more text there. And I want to come up even a little bit higher, and maybe I'll come all the way up to, no, I think I'll stay there. Sorry about that. I'm going to just leave that. Command 0. We know that this text is the right formatting, so I'm just going to grab a bunch of that text. It's going to be way more than I need, but I want to illustrate one other point. Sometimes you'll pour text in and you have too much. So I'm just putting the cursor here, pasting that extra text in. Oh, it didn't remember it. Well, that's okay. So again, I can just come up to Window, Type, and Paragraph Styles, and I can just say Indent Paragraph, and it gets it right away. So now you can see I've filled in that extra type and it looks a lot better. But now we need a few more things. There's this odd drop cap over here that looks like a highway. It's like a highway. Let's zoom in on that over here. How did I do that and why? I know it's kind of ugly, but this is again to illustrate a point that you can do some things with type. I want to have a, well, here we'll go ahead and it says the word classical there, but I'm going to go ahead and pretend that the word is beginning with a T. I can actually just borrow that T from the word sports up here, because that's a nice big beefy T, not to be confused with a t-shirt. I'm just going to copy that, Command C, drag across it, Command C. Now I'm going to come down to here where I want to put my drop cap, and I'm just going to just paste that. And so there's my T. I can edit that. But what I don't want to do is edit it. I mean, it's still a font. I can come in here and double click on that and change it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to a drawing. So I'm going to come to the word type, and I'm going to say create outlines. And now it's just a drawing. I can no longer edit it as a font. I can actually mess it around and do anything I want to it, just like I would any drawing. I can use the pen tool or whatever. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this photo over here of this, and I'm going to shrink that way down using the free transform tool, and zoom. Hold the key down, the shift key down, drag that across over here, and I'm going to go ahead and put that right over the top of that. And that probably will look pretty good. It actually looks great just like that. Just make the P white. That's going to be that would be really beautiful. But I want to show you how to use this. Is just another clipping mask idea. So I have the T on top of this is now just a path, just like the drawing I did of the sports car. So it's a T on top of a photo, just like the sports car. Right click, make clipping path, and now I have that in there. But it's not making this wrap. I want to drop this right in here, but it's not wrapping. So what I have to do is draw a box. There's no way to just say wrap text the way you would in InDesign. You actually have to draw a box, and it has no formatting, but I'll format it just so you can see it. I'm going to click on that, make that black just so you can see my wrap, and now I'm going to select that, and I don't even need to select the type actually in the background. I can just select that and come up to Object and say Text Wrap Make, and it'll bump that out of the way. Now if I take away this fill, it's just this empty shell. You don't see it. It's there if you go like this. You can see the box. You know, it's actually making this wrap down here, this fourth line, and I don't want that wrap. So I'm going to go Command Y, and I can see that I can just shrink that box up a little bit, and that made that. Now it's not pushing down far enough to make that fourth line wrap. So if I go ahead and hit Command Y again, you can see that it is doing exactly what I wanted. It's also pushing this text a little too far to the side, so I can just pull this in a little bit more, and it'll look a lot better, I think. So Command Y. The other thing is I don't want that first line to be indented. Even though it's a paragraph style now, I can still override that manually by coming up here, going Command T. Oh, that's a paragraph style. So I'm going to go click on the word paragraph up here, and where it says 12-point indent, I'm just going to say 0. And now that is flush left. So now you can see that was how I did that pretty easily. We're almost done here. I'm going to drag my logo, and I'm just going to put that right there. And that looks pretty good. Bang, just pretty simple. And then down here at the bottom, you can see I also have some lines and between the paragraphs, and I have a red sports car type up at the top, and I have this color back here. So what I'm going to do now is quite simply I'm going to triple click on the word sports car, get the eyedropper, and just click on a red. Got that all red now. And then I'm going to take this line tool over here, come in, zoom in on the text, and now I could try to figure out where the middle is, but again, Command Y. There you can see the gutter just beautifully. So I'm going to draw this first line down here, stop it at this line on the right here. I want that to be 0.5, a half a point. So up here in the top left, where it says stroke, I'm hitting 0.5. Now I don't need to draw that every time. Now what I can do is just select that with the black arrow, hold the Option key down to duplicate. You can see that the arrow becomes 2 arrows, and the selection tool, and then if I hold the Shift key down, it'll conform it to the plane it's on, so it'll just go perfectly to the right instead of wobbly all over as I drag around. It'll hold it to that plane. So I'm going to hold the Option and Shift key down, and then click on this and drag it across. And the fun thing is, if I hit Command D, it'll repeat the last action I did. So Command D will just pop another one over there. Or I could have dragged it out the old way, and then just put that right in there. And if I wanted to be really careful, I could, just to show you how to do this, I could Command R brings these rulers in and out. Command R, or they're under View Rulers right there. And so what I could do is just pull a guide out of this and see if those lines are lined up, and they are. They look really great. So if you want to get rid of, you can go to View, Guides, Hide Guides, or clear them, or lock them so you can't move them. We'll just clear that just to get it out of the way. So this line over here, I want it to be actually a little bit deeper, so I'm going to go all the way down to that one. Pick the end with the white arrow, because I just want to select one point there. Come up with this one a little bit. That's looking good. And then we're on the last leg here. We're going to draw. You can see I have a black line down at the bottom of the car here with a fill. So I'm going to come over here and close the paragraph styles window and this color guide window, and I'm going to one of the things I do want to do is I want to make sure those lines line up with the edges of these text blocks. So I'm going to pull a guide out of this ruler on the left here, And I have hide guides on, so I'm going to go back to view and say guides, show guides, and you can see that guide now shows up, and I'm going to draw another one. Guides won't print, so you don't have to worry about that. Put that right there, and I know I need to draw this line right in between these two lines and be under the car and not through the car. So that's right about there. I think I have a little too high. I can just use the arrow keys on my keyboard to drop that down a little bit. Command Y. You can see that it's not as fat as the one over here on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and make that. I believe it's I'm going to say a 1-point line, perhaps. I think that's probably about right. And you can't tell that it's in front, but if it were in color, it would be passing in front of this tire, but they're both black. So I'm going to still hit right click arrangement, send that to the back. And one of the things that I can do is I can see the car's a little too high, but that's not a problem. I can just drag that car down a little bit more, and the type will just come with it and wrap along. It'll just change the wrap. That's not a big deal. And the last thing I'm going to do here is put a caption in, and this color. And the reason I have that horrible color right there is to show you graphic styles, which you should play with. I'm going to just go ahead and draw a box between those two guides again. And so there's a box, just a colored box. But what I want to do is make it a texture. So I'm going to come up to the word window, and down here you see graphic style libraries. There are all kinds of stuff here. I can make things 3D. Here I'll show you something that's really disgusting, and don't ever do this because no art director will ever hire you. But I'm going to click that type here, and I'm going to go to Window, Graphic Style, Libraries, and I'll say 3D Effects. And if I just click one of these 3D effects, watch what happens to that. This might just take a second, but watch what happens to that word sports car up there. There, bang. So I don't want to do that. You know, I can see why people are going to become enamored with this stuff. It looks really junky and over the top and trying too hard, but everybody has their own design style. Back to this car, though, to this box. I don't want that. What I want is to have textures. There are all kinds of ones. I'm going to pick one of these. Which one? Let's see. How about if you roll over, it says what it is. There's RGB concrete. That I think is what I used before. So I'm just clicking on that, and it'll go ahead and sponge that. It's saying it'll sponge it, and so there's a texture, and so there are lots of different textures you can use. I'm sure there are millions more you can find online, free textures that you can import into your graphic style palette. And I'm going to go ahead and say arrangement and send that to the back. And the last thing I'm going to do is come down here, pull my caption right in there. I'm going to hit Command T to get my text tool up. I'm going to make that 8-point type, and I'm going to make it. It looks like it's just italic. It's not anything but italic. It's not bold or anything. So I'll make that italic and bring that down there. And I think now if I come up to View, Guides, Hide Guides, we should. I'm going to get rid of all. If you hit the Tab key, it completely gets rid of all the windows. You can see I didn't make the drop cap the same size. It's much bigger on the other one. It's an ugly drop cap anyway. But so there you go. That's how you make this layout. Hope you can follow along and do a great job on your own there. Take care. Carl Good here.